right, Fantasy Nation, the final division of our 2022 fantasy football preview. We have the NFC West, so this is a fun one. We're going to kick things off with the Arizona Cardinals. Not a lot of coaching changes here. Week 1 opponent for them is the Kansas City Chiefs, traveling to Arizona, take on the Cards, so a chance for a shootout right off the bat. My fantasy spotlight is Marquise Brown. DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games. Marquise Brown is brought in from the Ravens. They trade for him. They go out and get him. I love this guy. Old college player. I think he was a roommate of Kyler's over at Oklahoma. And so these two have a connection. Brown was the wide receiver 6 in fantasy last year before Lamar got hurt. And he was 1 out of 6 players with a 24% plus target share in each of his last 2 years. So he now plays on a better offense. He's former college quarterback. You know, that narrative, obviously Kyler's more accurate than Lamar was. So I think Marquise Brown is going to have a monster season. He's being drafted as kind of like a late wide receiver 2, and I think he's going to be a high wide receiver 2, borderline low end wide receiver 1, especially those first 6 weeks. He's going to be a target hog in that offense. And so I'm all in on Marquise Brown, all in on Kyler. He got paid. He does what he does best. He may get dinged up. That's the one risk in drafting Kyler. But when he's healthy, he's a top 3 quarterback in fantasy. And, you know, you love to see the upside, especially once Hopkins comes back. How are you going to possibly defend that offense? It's Zach Ertz is not a schmuck. You got James Conner in the backfield. Now you've got Rondale Moore with Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. That's scary. And, you know, they draft another tight end, Trey McBride. He could see some time if Ertz gets hurt. But yeah, I love Marquise Brown, love Rondale Moore. You can get Rondale Moore extremely late in drafts. He's probably going to be featured with DeAndre Hopkins out the first 6 weeks. There's actually talk that he could fill the Christian Kirk role. Christian Kirk, of course, now on Jacksonville. But I love both those guys, Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore is a late round flyer. Why not take a shot at him? And then Marquise Brown, you got to spend a little draft capital to pick him up, but I think he's worth it. Again, Kansas City Chiefs week 1, that's a coin flip for me. I don't know who's going to win, but it's going to be high scoring. All right, now with the Rams up next, lot of offseason moves for them. Their offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell, he left to become the head coach of the Vikings. We'll see how that impacts the offense. I still think this team is going to be okay. The big factor here, though, is Matthew Stafford and his elbow. Some of these off-season reports are suggesting this is going to be an ongoing issue for him the whole season. So all the players, the entire offense tied to Stafford, they're going to go as he goes. If he misses any time, that's really bad for Kupp, Akers, Henderson, Robinson, you name it. This offense is going to go as he goes. So keep that in mind. Kevin O'Connell leaving could be a factor. I just think this team is bound to regress negatively fantasy-wise, and both fantasy-wise and in terms of their wins and their postseason aspirations. I just don't think this is the team for them this season. But they open up the season against Buffalo at home. They can win that game. I don't think they will, but it should be a shootout. Should be a good one. We'll see. But yeah, I'm out on Kupp this year. You know, if he falls to me at the 5, 6, 7 slot in the first round, maybe. But too much riding on Stafford. You know, if his elbow gives out and you're tied to his top receiver, that's bad news, and he will not pay off at that draft price. So to me, I'll take Jamar Chase, safer bet. I'll take a Swift or a Saquon even, believe it or not, over Kupp. But I'm not going to ride with him this year. The receiver I am betting on in this offense is Allen Robinson, just because the cost to acquire him is very affordable. You know, he's going to be replacing Robert Woods as the wide receiver 2 in LA. Of course, Odell is not there as of right now. He may be signed during the season, but Woods finished top 20 every season in this role. Robinson, in my opinion, is an upgrade. He beat man coverage at a top 10% rate in 2021, and now he's being paired with the number one quarterback versus man coverage in Matthew Stafford. So total match made in heaven. Robinson was a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy in 2019 and 2020. Rams led the NFL in passing rate inside the 5-yard line last year. They were second in passing rate inside of the 10. That is where I think they're going to use Allen Robinson. He's going to be their red zone weapon. A lot of touchdowns coming his way as long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy. So again, that's the key factor here. And if Robinson slips to you in round 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, I just keep seeing him dropping. You got to nab him. He's my target for my wide receiver 2 this year, and he's a guy that could easily finish in the top 15, in my opinion. Moving on to San Francisco, offensive coordinator Mike McDaniels left. He is now the head coach in Miami for the Dolphins. I don't think this offense really changes too much. It's still Shanahan. They're still going to run the ball. They still have Brandon Ayuk. They still have Deebo Samuel, and they get an upgrade at QB. They go from Jimmy Garoppolo, Mr. Game Manager, and he was hardly that for them, to Trey Lance, who's a playmaker. He can get it done with his legs. He's a fast, mobile quarterback. He's got a great arm. I think this offense takes off. The Niners are my pick to win that division. I think they're going to be really tough to beat in the playoffs, just because of Trey Lance's dual threat abilities. As a rookie, Trey Lance posted the 5th highest fantasy points per dropback since 2011, and he was the QB4 in expected fantasy points per game. He also posted 20-plus fantasy points in both of his starts last year. So he can do it. It's a small sample size, but he is that guy. Also, don't forget that 92% of the QBs that get 125 rushing attempts in a season have finished top 10. So he's going to finish top 10 as long as he stays healthy, as long as they continue to allow him to do his thing and run, which they will. I think he's got top 5 upside. He could easily finish as QB1, no doubt about it. He also has Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, a lot of weapons at his disposal. And speaking of Ayuk, he was wide receiver 16 over the second half of last season, so we saw him finally get out of that doghouse. The production followed shortly thereafter. And he trained with Trey Lance all off season. They're buddies. They're hanging out. They're grabbing dinner. That's big. That'll pay off on the field. We saw it with Stafford and Cup. And then on top of that, he's reportedly the most improved player on that roster. So we'll see. That's all just talk in the offseason, but nothing but positive stuff there in San Francisco. They take on the Bears week 1. They're going to smoke them. I think this Niners team is legit. I think they're Super Bowl contenders. It's all going to depend on Lance staying healthy and that offense taking the next step without Jimmy G holding them back. And then finally, we have the Seattle Seahawks. No real coaching changes of note. Week 1, they're taking on Denver, so good luck with that. Russ is going to cook in Seattle and make them pay for letting him leave. And the 2 fantasy spotlights, the only 2 guys that I really care about in this offense are Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker. I don't want any part of DK Metcalf. I'm good with Tyler Lockett. I'm going to pass on both of those guys. No thank you with Noah Fant. Anyone tied to Drew Lock, I'm out on. And even if Lock isn't starting, I don't think Geno Smith is that guy either. So I'm only interested in the backfield. Rashad Penny, if he stays healthy, that'll pay off at his current ADP. And Kenneth Walker's been sliding ever since his hernia surgery. So Seahawks drafted him in the 2nd round. Kenneth Walker, that is, for a reason. They spent a lot of draft capital on him. He was the number 2 running back off the board, consensus number 2, right after Breece Hall. So the talent's there. He's a 98th percentile speed score, and Rashad Penny's never had more than 125 touches in a season. So at some point he's going to break down. He always has, and that's going to open up more opportunities for Kenneth Walker. So he's more of a second half of the season, waiver ad if he somehow drops late in your draft and you want to scoop him up. He's certainly a dart throw, but he's not going to be an impact player on this team until Rashad Penny goes down, and that may not be until halfway through the season, or even at all. Rashad Penny may give us a full season here, so it's tough to bank on the starters going down. But in terms of handcuffs, Kenneth Walker is one of the higher upside handcuffs in the league in terms of when you look at the running back position. So that wraps it up for us. That is your 2022 fantasy football season preview. We went team by team, division by division, AFC, and then NFC. I think I covered it all. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments section there. If you like the video, go ahead and like it, subscribe on YouTube. Again, it's Fantasy Umpire on Twitter and on YouTube. Appreciate you guys following me, and appreciate the patience too. I know this is coming out last minute here, as most fantasy drafts are underway or have already taken place. But again, I know there's still quite a few left to go, and the final couple of days here before kickoff on Thursday. So appreciate it, guys, and have a good one.